It all started when I decided to visit the dollar store late one evening. Life wasn't kind, and I needed to stretch my budget. The parking lot was nearly empty, bathed in the flickering glow of a neon sign. The moment I walked in, a strange unease settled over me. The familiar chime of the door echoed louder than usual, and the cashier, a young guy glued to his phone, barely acknowledged me. As I browsed, I noticed something strange. A new aisle, one I didn't recall seeing before. It was tucked into the far corner of the store, its shelves towering ominously high. The fluorescent lights above it flickered weakly, casting long, unsettling shadows. At the top, the aisle's sign was blank, just an empty white rectangle. Curiosity overrode my better judgment. As I stepped closer, I felt an odd chill. The items on the shelves weren't like anything else in the store. There were strange, unbranded boxes, peculiar toys with distorted faces, and electronics that hummed faintly, as if alive. My gaze fell on a small black box, sitting on an otherwise empty shelf. When I picked it up, it felt unnaturally cold and heavy. Just as my fingers brushed its surface, I heard it. Whispers. "Help us," they hissed, faint but distinct. I froze, heart pounding. I glanced around, but the aisle was empty. Shaking it off, I set the box down and moved further down the aisle. That's when I saw the mirror. Its frame was old and tarnished, the glass streaked with grime. But when I looked into it, I didn't see my reflection. Instead, I saw a man. Pale, with hollow eyes and lips that moved soundlessly. A loud crash startled me. I had knocked over a stack of plastic cups, and the noise shattered the silence. The cashier appeared at the end of the aisle, his face half hidden in shadow. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone flat. "Yeah, just dropped something," I mumbled. His eyes flicked to the mirror, then back to me. For a moment, I thought I saw fear in his expression. Without another word, he turned and walked away. When I looked back, the mirror was gone. The shelf was completely empty, as if it had never been there. Something compelled me to keep going, despite the growing dread. At the very end of the aisle, a single item sat on an otherwise bare shelf, a cassette tape. Black with "Play Me" scrawled on it in shaky handwriting. I picked it up, my hands trembling. The whispers returned, louder this time. "Run. Don't. Too late." Ignoring the warning, I brought the tape to the cashier. He took it wordlessly, placed it in a paper bag, and handed it back. "No charge," he muttered, his voice oddly mechanical. I left in a daze, clutching the bag tightly. When I got home, I found an old cassette player and slid the tape inside. As I pressed play, the room seemed to darken, shadows creeping across the walls. At first, there was static. Then, faintly, my own voice. "If you're hearing this, it's too late." My stomach dropped. The tape described everything I'd just experienced at the store in exact detail. Then it continued, describing things I hadn't done yet, things I didn't understand. The shadows in the room grew deeper, pooling at my feet. I tried to stop the tape, but the buttons wouldn't work. The voice droned on, chillingly calm. "You'll never leave." The last thing I remember was a cold hand gripping my shoulder and darkness swallowing me whole. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the aisle. Only this time, the shelves were filled with familiar items, things from my past, childhood toys, old photos, even the shoes I lost years ago. At the end of the aisle where the mirror had been, stood me. Not a reflection, not a duplicate. It was me. Now, when people visit the dollar store late at night, some swear they hear whispers. They say the shadows in the far aisle seem to move on their own, watching, waiting. But no one ever sees me, only the next ones.